the reason I wanted to talk directly after Margaret Martin, and today actually I was on a radio interview and somebody said, why is women aid there? Surely to God, if you're lone parents, you're not subject to domestic violence. Well, I'm sorry. How do you think we became lone parents? A lot of people. You know, domestic violence ends up resulting in lone parent families. And unless you provide the support for lone parent families, you're trapping people in domestic violence situation. So I just thought it was very important today to make that link between domestic violence and lone parent families. And one of the key tools, if somebody's been abusive and you've escaped that, the only means they have controlling you is child access and, have you got it? Which one? Is that it? Oh, sorry. Is that it? Yeah. Is child access, and the other one is child maintenance. And financial abuse is a form of domestic violence. And when you leave, the only thing they have is financial control. What we're calling for is for a statutory maintenance agency to be taken out of control of the courts. The courts are not, I wonder, can I put that up here? Yeah, no, because I want to see it. Yeah, no, thanks. We want maintenance to be taken out of control of courts, to be set up in a statutory maintenance agency, to be deducted at source. We can do it for local property tax, but apparently children are not as important as people. Okay, so the question we're asking today is, child maintenance, is it time for a statutory agency? The case for child maintenance payments, firstly. Always the debate is around alleviating poverty in lone parent. It always centres on two things, either social welfare benefits or paid employment. However, there is a third option there, and child maintenance has largely been ignored as a possible solution in Ireland. And there are reasons why we say it's good for parents to pay. Parents who pay child maintenance are more likely to have frequent contact with their children than those who do not pay child maintenance. I like to call it the pay-per-view maintenance. Research has shown that in the UK there is a 30% reduction in the poverty gap as a result of child maintenance payments. We need child poverty reduced, and this is a key. And why are we saying statutory maintenance agency? Well, firstly, forcing parents to seek maintenance through the court system prolongs family discord. If you're going in every month battling for maintenance, you're not going to be putting the interest of your child first, neither parent. The in-camera courts mean there is no standardised payments, and amounts awarded can be dependent on the judge on the day, or as one of the commissioners in the CEDAW committee said, the whim of the judge on the day, when she looked at Irish maintenance. The lack of communication between the courts and the Department of Employment and Social Protection can mean reduced welfare payment for parents when an order is in default. We have many, many parents who have an order for €100 a week. They don't get it, but yet they're being deducted €50 or the full 100 and are living way below social welfare benefit. And they're caught between a rock and a hard place. Social welfare say you need to go back to the courts to enforce it. The courts say we can't do anything, go back to social protection. Once an order is awarded, it is up to the custodial parent to enforce the order, and that is an unfair burden, and it can be difficult to succeed. Domestic abuse survivors will often face financial abuse when they leave, and the current system facilitates this ongoing abuse. Childhood poverty in Ireland is why we need a maintenance system. In Ireland, the consistent poverty rate is disproportionately high for children, which would appear to suggest we're not providing adequate supports for families with children. The overall consistent poverty rate is 8.7%. Yet for children, it is 11.5%. That was according to the most recent figures, EU SILC 2015. But however, when we break that down further, we can see, yes, 11.5% for children 0 to 17, then it goes to 8.7% for the working age population, and then it drops to 2.7% for over 65s. But there's a deeper injustice there. When we break it down into household composition, children in lone parent families account for 26.2% of children in poverty, 3.5 times higher than the consistent poverty rate for the general population. Actually, children in two-parent families with 3 or less children, they're at 7.7. Still too high, but about the average in Ireland. So they're not being disproportionately affected. When we talk about childhood poverty in Ireland, we're talking about lone parent family, and to an lesser extent, families with 4 or more children. One of the awful things about, well, I could talk about, there was more than one awful thing, but one of the things that really upset me about the changes to lone parents introduced by the Labour government in in 2012 was a condition of receiving one-parent family payment is that the recipient is obliged to seek maintenance from the other parent or provide the Department of Social Protection with their details, and they will pursue them through the Maintenance Recovery Unit. The liability to maintain family provisions came into, well, no need to go into it, but they're underpinned in legislation, and it allows the Maintenance Recovery Unit in the Department of Social Protection to issue a determination order and seek maintenance of the liable relative, i.e. in 98% of cases men. However, when children now turn 7, they are no longer, lone parents now transfer to job seekers transition. And that legislation underpinning liability to maintain a family does not extend to job seekers transition or a family income supplement. So what that means, I'll keep you in suspense, is that when one-parent family payment ceases for parents with children aged 7 or older, the Maintenance Recovery Unit have no longer the legal right to instruct the liable relative to make a contribution for their child. And not only does that happen, they write out and inform them. So that has led to a 28% decrease in the prevalence of maintenance for lone parents when their child turns 7. And at the same time, they're writing out to fathers saying you no longer have to contribute to maintain your child. They are telling women that you must seek maintenance as a condition of your payment. And the only way they can do that is through the court system. And why are parents reluctant to go to court? Okay, so as I said, parents are reluctant to go to court as this is adversarial by nature. Courts will not issue a summons for maintenance unless the custodial parent has a current address for the non-custodial parent. So if he decides not to hide, if he decides to hide, you can't do anything. No, just leave. If there is non-compliance with a maintenance order, the custodial parent must issue the enforcement proceedings. However, if the other parent fails to turn up, a bench warrant issues. Bench warrants are seldom executed in family law cases, as there is no prosecuting garda. In every other case where there's a bench warrant issued, there's a prosecuting garda who will follow up with the bench warrant. There is none. So what happens is the bench warrants issue, they get sent to the local garda station, and there they sit in a pile for when the guard has a free time to go and execute them. And that, as you can imagine, is rarely. What happens is, if the guy has done something else that has upset the guard, it may be executed then, they may use it as an excuse. And while your bench warrant is sitting there not being executed, you are in limbo because you cannot go any further with the courts and social welfare will not help you. So it's a huge risk by going for your maintenance order. If there is a court order in place, the Department of Employment and Social Protection treat it as means, whether it's paid or not. And many parents will not risk losing a guaranteed social welfare payment, low as it is. 100% of maintenance is deducted from rent allowance, so there's no incentive to go to court looking for maintenance. 50% is deducted if you're on job seekers transition or on one-parent family allowance or job seekers allowance, and 60% if you're on FIS. That's a lot of small benefit for going to court and a risk if he doesn't pay, which you can see why people don't want to do it and why we need this to be statutory and out of courts. In July 2016, the Department of Employment, we raised this issue with the Department of Employment and Social Protection. And we said, look, where parents have bank account statements clearly showing there is no maintenance going in, can you reassess them
based on what they're actually getting, i.e. nothing, rather than what they should be getting. Stop using the court order as a baton to punish them with. And the department officials wrote to us confirming that even where bank statements prove non-compliance of a court order, they will not reinstate full social welfare payment until they get satisfactory proof from the courts. And this can be extremely difficult and time-consuming, as courts do not monitor whether the payments are being made. So it's a case of going back in and out of court, trying to get enforcement orders. And this comes to the juicy part of what I think, because when I was doing these stats, I was actually quite horrified. We put up a survey, and I will grant you, there's nothing, these were people who self-volunteered to answer. So, it's not representative of everything, but it gives us a good little overshot. 80 families responded to our survey, and that accounted for 155 children. Out of that, 72 families did have some sort of maintenance award, which affected 136 children. And 13 families had no maintenance awards, and they came in from different reasons why there was none. He left the country, they hadn't an address, and they knew that he would be violent if they went after them. For whatever reason, they chose not to get it. The average award per child was €21.53 per week. €21.53. Now, if I want to go out tonight, I have to pay more than €20 to get my daughter minded for the night. Out of the 43 families out of our 85 had a maintenance order, but it was in arrears, and that represented 94 children. The total outstanding arrears for those 43 families was €561,741. That's money that is badly needed in our families. That represented €5,975.97 per child. And when you think about it, that's from a maintenance award of €21.53 per week. And that's for some families, because it works out per family at €13,063.74 per family. And today it was just funny. I got a message from a lady who was supposed to come up from Galway, actually. And she said to me, when I looked at my figures, I don't have the bus fare up. Imagine if I had the 15,000 maintenance owed to me. I'd be able to do more than come up to Dublin. And that's the reality. In our survey, only 29 families, 42 children were receiving regular maintenance payments. 27% of total children. Only 27% were getting what they were supposed to get. And 26.2% of our families live in consistent poverty. I just thought that was an interesting, that's what we're talking about, and this is why they're living in consistent poverty. Next. So our key findings. The child maintenance system in Ireland places too much burden on the custodial parent with very little rewards. The Department of Employment and Social Protection are too rigid in their assessment of child maintenance, which discourages custodial parents seeking maintenance. In the UK, child maintenance is seen as benefit for the child and is not assessed as income for means-tested payment. In Ireland, a parent on social welfare receives €29.80 per week for a child. Yet if a parent receives higher maintenance than this, the payment is taken off the adult's job seeker's payment instead of benefiting the child. In Nordic countries, the state advances court-ordered maintenance and then recoups it directly from the non-custodial parent. This ensures consistent income for the custodial parent. We believe that there's an urgent need to establish a statutory maintenance agency as recommended by the UN CEDAW periodical review in March of this year and the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Social Protection in June 2017. We believe there's a need for a complete overhaul of how child maintenance is awarded, assessed and collected. And as a matter of urgency, we believe that the legislation needs to be introduced to ensure the Department of Employment and Social Protection can place an obligation on liable relative to support their child beyond the age of 7. I mean, that just seems so ridiculous to have to say that, but that's what we're looking for. And that's just the references there. So thank you for listening. As you can see, As you can see, I'm quite passionate about child maintenance. Those of us in Spark know why I'm passionate about it. The creative means I used to get my maintenance paid, but because of in-camera rules, I can't explain what I had to do. Thank you.